Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy, said everyone was a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will grow up its whole life believing it is stupid. Well, newsflash, fish don't climb trees. And I doubt any of you would say to that fish, you need to climb that tree in order to read. I believe, unknowingly, our education system says that to many, many of our children. You'll know some, and you may be one. I'm proud to say I have the gift of dyslexia. But when I went to school back in the 60s, dyslexia really wasn't a thing. And I didn't know I had it. I may have been slow to read, but I was really good at daydreaming. My virtual world existed way before 2020. I could imagine any 3D object from any angle. The elephant in my mind allowed me to wander around it, and when I rode it, the view was amazing. I assumed everyone thought like that, and why wouldn't I? Nobody had ever asked me, how do you think, or how do you learn? Did anyone ask you? I didn't know that this natural ability to alter perception caused a problem in the 2D world of print. I might be seeing a lowercase d and perceiving it from 180 degrees as a p. Confusing. I had no idea I needed images for the meaning of every word I read. I read book, I saw one. I read bicycle, I saw one. I read the, if, and, no images. And I did not know that those little words made up half of what I read. I think in images. No image equals no thinking. I get to the bottom of the page and utter those very familiar words. What was that about? In the 90s, I learned how to correct my dyslexia. And for the past 22 years, I've had the privilege of working with children and adults who have difficulty, with words, lexia. I observe them entering school with an insatiable love of learning. They enter with a learning difference. They leave with a learning disability label, which is so far from the truth. They are so smart and totally able to learn. They just happen to learn differently from the way they're taught. So let's liken this different learner to the Apple Mac computer and the typical learner to the PC. At one end of the continuum, the Mac is image-based with an internal film, hands-on, kinesthetic learners. At the other end, the PC is sound-based, internal dialogue, linear and sequential. They do really well in school because guess who designed the system? Yay, the PCs. Would you run a Mac on a PC system? If you learn like this and you're taught like that, there's going to be a challenge. So let's meet Alex. At 4 years old, he was an animal expert, having been glued to the Discovery Channel. He loved learning. The questions were non-stop. His mother was very grateful. He made all his toys out of cardboard and sticky tape. And she thought school would be a walk in the park. But the annual school photograph told a different story. His eyes dimmed. His skin paled. He withdrew. And when he went home, he was silent. Not being able to read, and with colorful, aka phonetic spelling, his only question now was, Mom, do I really have to go to school? He hated being pulled out of class for more of what he couldn't do already, and no one told him what he'd missed. When his mother tried to help him read, the dinosaur book often flew across the room, and it wasn't always Alex that threw it. His dreams of becoming the next David Attenborough were fading purely because he learned differently. Lexi, 14 years old, she'd worked herself to the bone. She spent 4 hours on homework, her friends spent 1. She was exhausted and frustrated, and they were outside playing. It wasn't fair. She needed to get to medical school. She so wanted to help people, but she couldn't read in class, or with the helper in the hallway, or her parents, or the tutor twice a week for 3 years. She looked at the pages, and the words just disappeared. Over and over, she hoped for a different result. She lived the definition of insanity on a daily basis. Knowing she wasn't lazy, she concluded she must be stupid, worthless. And that's when the drinking started. And then the recreational drugs, and then the harder drugs. Another dream dashed purely because she learned differently. And Lex. At 24, he decided it was time to learn to read. He's a charmer, empathetic to the core, kind, willing, amazing athlete, brilliant sense of humor. So good at thinking outside the box, he was completely oblivious of the box. Having failed kindergarten, his wonderfully supportive parents tried every form of education, public, private, special, homeschooling. He confided, I didn't repeat grade 5 because I had so much fun the first time. He knew he was being bumped through. He knew he wasn't passing every grade. So he decided his dreams didn't really matter. But psychology sounded interesting, so maybe learning to read would come in useful. I wish you could have seen their faces when they discovered there was nothing wrong with them. They blossomed. They weren't broken. They didn't have a neurological malfunction. They had a neurodiversity. They could have learned like that, but they'd been taught like that. Now, Alex has his PhD. Lexi, 20 years sober and a nurse practitioner. Lex, clinical counselor and ski instructor. So let's do some dreaming of our own. No one needs to fundamentally change who they are in order to read, fulfill their potential, and achieve their dreams. No one. What if teachers could learn strategies to reach both the Macs and the PCs from day one? I meet teachers who want to know why they're not reaching all their students. And Laura was one such teacher. She learned these strategies in 2 days. So instead of telling the children to focus, she was able to show them how. Did anyone show you how? If not, it's like giving you a pair of knitting needles and saying knit. You're going to ask how. She had them create their alphabet in a 3D medium, hands-on. She shared inclusive reading skills for Macs and PCs. She showed them all how to create a 3D model for the meaning of any word, even the, if, and. In her K1 class, she achieved her June outcomes 6 months early, Her 5-year-olds were staying in at recess to write her notes voluntarily. And when asked how many children she'd be sending to special needs the following year, she replied, 0. Every child was learning able. Everyone was empowered. Happy teachers, happy students, happy parents. The worst thing that happened was the little PCs had to be more creative. The late Sir Ken Robinson said, the only things that will enable our children to navigate this rapidly changing world are creativity and problem solving. I believe our education system can make these small but far-reaching changes. Everyone is entitled to a cognitive equal opportunity to fulfill their potential, to celebrate their difference, and achieve their dreams. So let's shift our approach to everyone is learning able if they're enabled to learn in the way they were born to learn. And if you see any little fish who are struggling, please tell them, fish really don't need to climb trees to read. Thank you.